Mancini per Nedved, gol! Pirlo, la conclusione in rete! Andrea Pirlo, un gol pazzesco! Del Piero, gol! Alex Del Piero! Palla di Pogacar, Pogba, rete! Un gol incredibile! Pogba fa esplodere lo Juventus Stadium!
Hello and welcome to episode 313. I'm assuming we're not counting the special that you guys recorded with Just Juve as an official count. Just kind of gets added in there as a special episode. So you agree? 313, not 314?
No, it's 313, which, by the way, 313 area code for Detroit, Michigan. Just wanted to throw that out there. Call out to the old home state and city. Visit Detroit, everybody. Juve says so.
Visit Detroit. Visit Detroit. If you remember nothing from this episode, remember to visit Detroit.
Just don't go Kevin. 8 Mile is what I've been told as a European.
8 miles the northern border of the city of Detroit. And it's actually quite lovely in spots. So yeah.
Off to a good start. I'm Kevin. I'm the host for this episode. Farhad is unable to be here. I've missed the last couple of episodes, and I'm thrilled to be back with my colleagues and friends, Zach and Frederic. How are you both?
Enjoying a scintillating international break, Kevin. It's just loving it.
I always hate the fact that they start the competition again, and then like after 2 days they say, well, hey, let's quit it. Let's do something else. Let's watch Italy play against Estonia or whatever shithole of a country that we're playing. Or I just can't stand it. Like you're getting into the flow and then they say, nah, you had enough. I mean, it's been
let's throw in the risk of injury, and especially if you have some momentum. Let's fly
over to Estonia because why not? I mean, it makes no sense to me in all honesty, but we can't choose.
Look, Frederick, I've never been to Estonia, so I can't necessarily say that or agree with it being a shithole country. It could very well be a nice place. They're not a very good football team, though.
It probably is a very nice place.
I've heard great things about Tallinn. If we have any listeners from Estonia, we do not.
I'm sorry, my fellow
Frederic's
Estonians.
Comments.
No. It was out before I had a chance to think about it, but just in general, international football break this soon. I mean, give me some Serie A, some competitiveness. Start the Champions League already. I mean, school started.
It's frustrating to dive into the international break as soon as the season starts, and there's just too many games on the calendar to begin with. But because there's no Juve match this weekend, it gives us an opportunity to talk about some other things. We will take just a couple minutes to reflect on the aforementioned Italy against Estonia match. We will take some time to reflect on what we've seen in the first 2 games of this season against Parma and Genoa. My goodness, it's been a week and I forget.
It's been a while.
It's Parma and Genoa. And then we'll do a look ahead to the Derby d'Italia coming up next weekend. I'm personally very excited for this match because I'm going to have the opportunity to be in Turin and go to this match, and look forward to the post-game recording that we'll do after that episode, reflecting on hopefully what will be a positive match for us and a really good viewing experience for myself. But before we get into it, just a couple housekeeping items. Of course, follow us on all of our socials on X/Twitter at Juve Podcast and Turin Giants, on Instagram, where we really focus a lot of our energy in connecting with our fans and followers at Turin Giants and at the Scoop Juve or at Scoop Turin Giants. I always forget you guys.
The Scoop Juve.
At the Scoop Juve, of course.
And well, we'll say while you say that, markets closed, at least for the European leagues right now, a couple lingering ones, but Frederic and I will periodically pop in with a scoop over the course of this fall, as we approach the winter transfer market, to see kind of what rumblings are going on behind the scenes and what negotiations are going on for maybe moves in December, or excuse me, in January, or what groundwork is being laid maybe for some folks on a free that you can start signing in January to join us July 1st of next
Yeah,
year.
and
So
can
pay
already
attention to that.
say I can already tell you guys that there's a lot of work being done behind the scenes right now. So I'll take a minute to collect all my info and filter out the good from the bad, or the true from the not true, and we'll report back to you as soon as we can.
Amazing. Great. So the Mercato might be closed, but the scoop does not slow down. I love it. And of course, you can follow us on YouTube at Turin Giants Official. This episode will be posted to YouTube as well. And of course, you can access this on all streaming platforms and podcast outlets. And particularly if you're watching this on Spotify and your phone is in your pocket, pause, pull the phone out. You can watch along on video as well. Am I forgetting anything, guys?
I take your cap off, to be honest, because we had our previous episode with three bald guys, and it might just
Kevin's not
now
bald.
we can. No, I mean that's
I
why
may
we
have a
can we
receding
can break the
hairline, but I'm
cycle.
not bald.
We can break the cycle now. I mean, I had so many comments and chuckled at so many comments from YouTube, but we'll get into that maybe a bit later on. If or is it planned for
Well,
now,
yeah,
Zach? To have a little.
let's actually start there. So, for the listeners, if you didn't get a chance to listen to the episode that preceded what we've just posted, Zach and Frederic were hosted on probably the, the most respectable and kind Juventino out there. Giuseppe Bognani, G just Juve, Uncle Beppe, as you may have heard him referred to. We're trying to work with him to do something a bit more regular. I think the intent is to do something pretty much every week, every Thursday. And Frederic and Zach represented Turin Giants incredibly well. So, guys, why don't you tell us about that experience and what you think the listeners and fan can expect moving forward?
So the partnership, the nature of the partnership is really to provide sort of to build on a live show, to provide different perspectives using our roster, the Turin Giants roster, Kevin, Frederic, myself, Farhad, Rav, we've got Patrick Damiano, lots of people. And, we can bring different perspectives to foster, I think, more interesting dialogue, whether it be about tactical analysis and transfers, which a lot of the episode the other day focused on. But it also could be stuff like games, or reminiscing about important games in Juve history, and highlighting important players. Of course, the long and rich history of Juventus. And so I think it's going to be a real diverse slot of topics, games, and we really encourage our followers, his followers, and anyone who just loves Juventus to join us on Thursdays for the live show. All of which, if you're unable to join the live show, will be available on Turin Giants' our Spotify within 24 hours of that recording, that you can listen on the car or at work or whatever it might be.
Yeah, and also like a special shout out to Uncle Beppe. I mean, it was awesome just being there. Like, me and Zach, we do a lot of things together already, podcast wise. So it was nice to, break out of the Scoop and Turin Giants thing, but it was kind of familiar as well. And I had a blast. Like, it was really a really fun episode. The people in the chat were really, really active. We had a lot of fun, a lot of laughs. And I think that's, for me personally, that's the benefit I get out of the Scoop, Turin Giants, and the partnership with Beppe, is just meeting people online, having fun, talking about our passion, and trying to gain insights from this different perspectives and people all over the world. So for me, that's an amazing experience to be had.
And Kevin, you've met Beppe in person. I mean, he is genuinely the nicest guy. Like when you meet beforehand, before we get on the episodes, when we chat afterwards while things are uploading and everything, I don't think anyone thinks he's not, but some, you might wonder what happens behind the camera. He is genuinely the most nice guy. He's absolutely passionate about everything Juventus and everything about people, other fans, and people like him who love Juventus. And so I think it's just really nice to get someone who's so nice and passionate, and you just get people in the room and you chat with them like they're friends.
Yeah, and he's a real one. I mean, like on camera, off camera, doesn't matter. He's the same guy, the same person, warm-heartedly, always in for a laugh. I mean, it's just an amazing pleasure to share these experiences with people like that. I mean, and we both have a common passion. We all do, so that makes it even better. And yeah, like I said, an amazing experience overall.
Yeah, he's definitely one of those guys who it's impossible for him to have any haters and just 100% authentic through and through. Like what you said, you get the same guy who's public through the social media outlets and YouTube as you do if you're just sitting next to him at a table outside the stadium having a beer before the match, right? It's the same guy, and it's a pretty amazing story. And I genuinely think because of his character and the way he approaches people and the kindness that he brings has enabled him to get to where he is, where he turned a hobby and a passion in connecting with the Juve community into actually working with Juventus directly and working with their creator labs and being able to do player interviews. And I saw just recently, maybe you guys talked about this on the episode. I still need to find the hour and 45 minutes to listen to it, but it'll happen this week. He was just in Toronto recently with the Juve fan club, and I saw he was with Stefan Lichtsteiner. He just gets to get connected with players we grew up watching, and I think he just got there through being who he is, and that's
Yeah, I mean,
incredible
that's the
testament
thing.
to his character.
If you see him talking to Stefan Lichtsteiner, or I saw a clip of him with Kenan as well. I mean, he acts pretty much the same as he would do with me and Zach. So, I mean, this is just the testament of the fact that this is truly a remarkable and genuine guy. And I just can't stop rooting for the guy because he honestly he deserves like whatever he gets in terms of career and connections within Juventus, because nothing is staged, nothing is like, he's just real, and I just love that about him.
Machine Robocop. Pop, 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 pop.
Needless to say, I think the fact that he wanted to work with us and partner with us to kind of help provide different perspectives and enrich his show for the purpose of his audience is just humbling to me, and I know it's humbling to all of us. So we appreciate it. For if y'all haven't listened in, it was an absolute blast. Like Frederic said, you can check out the audio on Turin Giants or the YouTube video feed at Jesus Juve.
Amazing. And that's what's so cool just about this community. And yes, of course, it's about the football team that we all love to watch every weekend, but it's also the people and what can bring us together. I mean, you two guys right here, if it wasn't for Juventus and the community, there'd be no way we'd be interacting. And it's just cool to get to meet people from all walks of life and from all around the world with the shared connection. Look forward to listening to more of that. I would hopefully maybe I can sneak into one of those on a future Thursday recording.
You have hair, my dude. You have hair. I don't know if you'll be allowed.
So I'm disqualified.
You might be.
We made a statement. I mean, we came out guns blazing, rocking our scalps. I mean, I don't know if we can, but Kev, we love you. I'm sure we'll make something happen. If not,
we'll review the fine print and see if we can't work you in, Kevin.
There's always razor blades.
Maybe I'll just have to shave my head.
There
maybe
you go.
I can fake my way in.
There you go.
Moving on. So despite the disapproval of having an international break so soon at the start of the season, let's just take a couple minutes here to reflect on Italy versus Estonia. Unfortunately, I don't think any of the three of us had the chance to catch it live. I saw some highlights. I read some interviews and some notes on the recap. But just quickly hitting on that because a number of our players were called up to the squad, namely Locatelli, Gatti, and Cambiaso, none of whom were in the starting 11, but Locatelli and Cambiaso did come off the bench in the second half. Cambiaso with an assist and a hockey assist as well, I think, for that last goal. But it looked kind of concerning for the first kind of 50, 60 minutes of that match. Is Gattuso going to be able to leave his imprint on this team and move on from what was very much a failed Luciano Spalletti era with the Nazionale? But then once the floodgates opened, they sure did, finishing and rounding out the match with a 5-0 performance. And Italy's certainly going to need this if they're going to have an opportunity to not miss a third straight World Cup.
That would just be obscene, absurd. All of the synonyms, but it's a realistic possibility. You don't get disqualified from the World Cup because of Estonia, right? They're not world beaters. What's interesting is that Juventus is currently third in their group of 5, Group I in the European qualifiers, behind Israel, who they play in 2 days. They can leapfrog Israel if they win, and Norway, who's 4-0 in the group. And beat Italy 3-0. So when Gattuso
in Italy, and so we have our return leg against them in Norway.
Yeah, it'll give Gatti, Cambiaso, and Locatelli sort of advanced experience when we have to fly to Bodo. But when Gattuso was named, I mean, the way I see it is, because I don't think he's a very good tactical coach. It's really just vibes-based coaching. Like, is he going to come in and be able to beat his hairy chest and get people to run through walls for him? If so, maybe Italy's able to put it together. But
as exemplified by after the match, all of the players talking about that, he was like slapping him around at halftime.
Yeah, and that's Gattuso, right? I mean, and that's what you've got a bunch of former players that's like, hey, we're gonna go beat on our hairy chests and try to get people, because the X's and O's aren't gonna happen, and maybe that's the way to do international football for a team like Italy. You keep it simple, and when you look at a group of Norway, Israel, Estonia, and Moldova, you would expect a nation of the stature of Italy to get through. Yet we sit here third in the group, so we'll see. 2 days, Israel must-win game. That I think if they lose that could be the end of it. If they win, then it's chasing down Norway.
Just not a good generation of Italian players.
No, but I mean, this is just, I think herein lies the problem of Italy as a national team. Like, I remember when I grew up, you looked at the Italian national team, regardless of who played where, but there were players that made you fall in love with football. I'm thinking about Maldini, Nesta, Cannavaro, Del Piero, even
old man Pirlo took over that World Cup, just put the team on his back.
I mean, yeah, and even Roberto Baggio, Vialli at a point, yeah, Gianfranco Zola, like those were players that made an impact on you and on the pitch. We don't have that right now. We have literally zero talent. I mean, we have to be very fair. So the only thing we can do in order to compete is get our grinta volume up at 150% and try to win games in a scrappy manner, just based on willpower, and because we're not going to cut it talent wise. And that's a harsh reality, but I think our former president Andrea Agnelli warned us about this a couple of years ago. In general, he spoke about Italian football getting into a decline because of the structure we have. We are not supportive towards young talent. We don't nurture young talent. I think all of Italy decided, that Agnelli guy is full of crap. Let's not listen to him. And here we are. So it's gonna be a steep road uphill in order for us to regain that prestige that we once had as a national team, and it's not gonna be done overnight, I fear.
And what you said is being echoed. I mean, Fabregas was like, "I'd love to have more Italian talent, but who are you going to get? What good players are out there?" And when I think there have been a lot of comments in the Italian national team post games and all the Juventus games is, where are the Italians on Juventus? And I think there's always the same question underneath is, other than Barella, like what
Yeah.
Italian who's not going to come from Inter, you know,
Mhm.
what few good Italians there are getting bought by England, and what's left? Are they Juve quality players? Like I think guys like Fagioli, who I hated that we sold, like could very well be, but you have to invest in them, and the crop isn't there. It's not a big selection, and I think even when there is, and people aren't really investing in those players to see if they can foster. And I think we're seeing a product of a vacuum under the last generation. So I think maybe this one might be screwed to the point where maybe that next generation, let's work on them next gen teams that people are starting to have, could very well be the start or the funnel or the channel by which younger Italians get more opportunities in top.
And if the
top Italian teams.
plusvalenza addiction doesn't get in the way of that, because if you're raising a lot of this young Italian talent and you have the opportunity to sell them at 100% profit,
here Genoa, for 10 million.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, but it's also sometimes up to the players themselves. I mean, Leone went from a mid-tier table team in Italy to a European powerhouse. But is that necessarily the best thing for him? I think as a defender, if you can learn defending and develop yourself in Serie A, I mean that's still, in my opinion, as a defender, the best learning curve to be had. And now you just throw it all away because they're piling money onto you, and you can make a living for the coming 3 generations. Granted, but does that do wonders for your career? Does that do wonders for Italian football and the Italian national team? Because I think that we all come from a generation where we had our Nestor, Cannavaro, Maldini. They could have gone to United as well, or whenever they want. I think even Barcelona, Real, but they always stayed true partially to Serie A. And okay, it was another time, and Serie A was a bit more bombastic than it is now. But it's so many different things that really are wrong with us Italians, as in nurturing and preparing young talent, that it's beyond laughable even. So I can't imagine me living to see Italy win another World Cup like we did in 06.
I mean, I'm wondering if registration type rule requirement changes would be required to force more Italian talent on these teams, because you're seeing teams.
I think it's the only way that you could really force it.
Because you're not going to it's not going to happen otherwise. It's not going to happen if you can get a better player from, Croatia for cheap, who's established at Dynamo Zagreb for, at 26 years old. You will over a 17-year-old Italian who may or may not. Especially if you can get that guy and sell that guy for, like you said, 100% profit to rando team number 7. So yeah, I don't think it would happen, but I think that's the only way it could. The investment would have to happen is if you change the rule, but I don't see that happening anytime soon.
And I don't see us solving all of Fijici and Lega Italiana's problems on this podcast, although I bet we could if we locked ourselves in a room for a couple days.
Not even Juventus want to, because we don't spend any money in Italy anymore. So I think that's saying a lot.
Which that wasn't actually really a fun a stat you shared on our podcast with Beppe is, and I didn't really appreciate it until you said it. But for the sake of our listeners, we did not spend a penny, a euro, your currency of choice. We didn't send any to any team in Italy, which is, I don't know. Do you think that that's a good thing, Federic? Like you kind of framed it in the podcast with Beppe as a good thing, and I realized we don't want to give money to our rivals, but also that's how you invest in and nurture and develop. That's kind of the pipeline of player, right?
I'm also glad we didn't get duped by spending 40 or 50 million euros from Atalanta or Fiorentina. Again.
But think we're talking about player development. Leone goes to a Parma team who finished 16th. He gets noticed. How it's happened in the past is a team like Milan or Inter or Juve buys him, just like with like happened with Barello, Sandro Tonali. You know, that the next level, we buy him, and then that's where they're able to shine, right? That's how the pathway's been, by spending in Italy on Italians.
I rewatched our Beppe podcast because I felt I was a bit harsh at that point. I came out swinging like, "Fuck Italian teams," and but that was honestly my gut feeling. And I texted my source later on about that, and I just wanted to know, was that something that happened coincidentally, or was this something that was planned? And it was eventually, well, more or less planned, because we had contact with 2 Italian teams for 2 Italian players, one of which is Leone. The other one I'm not going to give away, because who knows in the future what will happen with
that player still might be on the table, huh?
Who knows? Who knows? Watch the scoop, Zach.
Look at that smile. If you're watching,
we have to do some
face.
marketing. We have to do some marketing. I mean, we're obliged to in this day and age. But and we came out with an offer. Parma said no, thank you. We're holding out for better. And Comoli said, okay, fine, bye. And he looked at our expenditure in Italy over the last years, and he said, this is never gonna happen under my watch again, because we paid a lot of players simply because we're Juventus.
Yeah.
And now it's time to send out a message, not just to the whole of Italy, but all of Europe, or wherever we do business, that we are not the pushover that we were the last 4 to 5 years financially, transfer wise. We tried to sort something out. We're willing to talk, we're willing to negotiate, as every other team does, but we're not just going to bend over and take it. And that was partially also one of the reasons why, and we'll get into that later on, why Dusan is still on our team. So I kind of applaud that, because if you look at how much we spend on and how much we donated to the likes of Fiorentina,
especially.
I mean, the same. We did that a couple of years ago with Udinese as well. I think we every mercado we bought one random Udinese player. Was he good? Was he bad? We didn't care. We just bought him outright. But I mean, that's Comoli's thing now. We buy quality at our terms, and we're willing to negotiate. If not, we'll keep on looking. There are enough players in the world, and we'll focus on that scouting. And is it in Italy? Is it in Europe? Is it in Africa? I don't care. I just want bang for my buck kind of players who want to be here. So I applaud that.
Moving on. Let's
Kevin's like, shut up, guys.
15 minutes ago, we said we were going to spend 2 to 3 minutes on the Italian national team, and here we are.
Sorry, Kev. Sorry.
No. Very, very good conversation. Just closing the page on that section there. Italy 5, Estonia 0. Neither of our, none of our 3 Juventini on the team had a overly material impact. And I think, at least for the foreseeable future of La Nazionale, we're not going to see much of a Bianconeri kind of impression or impact on that team. And if history is to serve any lesson, an Italian team with a Juve core usually is pretty successful, and without that, they're not. But let's see how that progresses. Next match this week against Israel, which is a must-win for that side. And then, of course, next week we get into the build-up to the Derby d'Italia. And I think this provides us a nice opportunity to reflect on what we've seen in these first 2 matches against Parma and Genoa. Zach, if you consider kind of 100 or 180 minutes, more or less, of viewing exposure, what are you most excited about? What's encouraging, not just for the upcoming match, but for the season from what you've seen?
There's 3 things. Okay. 2 of them are specific, are player specific. One of them is sort of a general tactical, a sort of a tactical component. When you look at this team, 2 games is too small of a sample size. But when you look at this team play, you want to be able to see patterns that can replicate itself, whether it be in Europe, whether it be against Pisa, or whether it's against Inter. And I think we're seeing the benefit of Tudor working with the majority of these players at the end of last season over the Club World Cup, and how we've played and performed these first 2 games. holistically. High press. We're 5th in tackles won in Serie A, 3rd in tackles won percentage, 2nd in tackles plus interceptions. We're winning the ball high up the pitch, where we're then able to turn it into and convert it into chances. So we're top 5 in tackling and intercepted categories. We're 4th in possession at 60%, 1st in attacking third touches, to then convert into 1st in Serie A in shot creating actions at 71 in 2 games, albeit against lesser competition. But I think if you put all of those together, that's showing a clear way that Tudor wants to play that's being executed. And the really important differentiator in this point from last year, because I said something similar last year about Motta's team. Motta's team lacked that last point, converting the stylistic play into chances and shots, where we would have all this possession and we would have all, moving up the pitch and all this stuff, but we could not form it into a channel for goals and shots. And that so far has been different. Yes, our goal volume is fewer after 2 games. Last year it was 6, and this year it's just 3. But how we got those goals and how we're pressuring goalkeepers is notably different, and it makes me encouraging. So that's just from an overall stylistic component.
Yeah, and you put a caveat around some of these stats, given that we haven't played maybe the strongest of competition. But as you know, we can only play against the teams that are in front of us, and we executed against that. But then you look at other, you would assert larger quality teams this season who have struggled. And right, you look at Milan against Cremonese, you look at Inter against Udinese, which we'll talk about. Napoli needed a last gasp finish from Anguissa to knock out a Cagliari who really kept them at bay. So I do applaud the way that we've been able to pull out results against the provincial sides, which you guys talked about on one of the previous episodes. This is where the seasons are won and lost. And when you're dropping points against these teams that you should be beating, that's when you lose. You don't lose seasons or fail to win the title because you drop some points in the top 5 head-to-head clashes. It's won and lost with the teams you should be beating.
And that kind of gets into my other 2 points. So at least my first one is, last year, when we needed a sub to make a difference, we had nobody. And so oftentimes in the 16 league draws that we had, we would be up 1-0 or 2-1. We'd be just praying, please hold on, with a Bremerless backline. And too often we didn't. We had nobody who could come in and score that second goal, so to speak, or nobody that could come in and cement the win from a defensive standpoint. As much as we've talked about Dusan underperforming and not worth his salary, name and stature and salary aside, he's come off the bench to score 2 goals for us. One of them was the winning goal. Having threat off the bench, Kostic to Dusan, both subs, is going to be essential to prevent the draws that we saw last year. And whether it's Dusan or Openda or Zagrova, we now have guys from an attacking perspective who can come off the bench and actually have a genuine impact. Because last year, you're talking about the ghost of Milik. You're talking about Nico, who really had a bad year. You're talking about McKennie, who's going to go through the midfield and maybe play out wide, but not necessarily there to score the goals. You didn't have anybody to score the goals off the bench until Colomwani came in, and then Dusan was coming off the bench and couldn't find the back of the net, even if you pushed him into it. So, I think this clinicality we've seen so far from Dusan, and not necessarily for him, just from off the bench, is going to be important. Long may it continue, but that has really assisted us so far. And I'll just touch on the last point I had of my 3. Is we talk a lot about Yildiz, and Yildiz under Tudor has been fantastic, cementing himself as probably our best player. He's top 5 on our team in pretty much every single category, whether it's offensive or defensive, which is just
his work rate is commendable,
crazy. But let's not forget a player that many of us have lauded, Turan. I wondered to what extent he would take a step over the offseason, and he has come out and proven me wrong. He wasn't going to take any steps. He was going to take leaps. In the first 2 games, he has so thoroughly outplayed Locatelli, who has played well, that it was baffling to me, such that I had to look up, like, what does this mean to Thuram against our team and in Serie A? And let me rattle some of these off for you. He's first on our team in completed passes. He's first in tackles plus interceptions. He's first in our team in progressive carry distance. He's first in our team in passes received. First in passes received, progressive carry distance, and completed passes. That means this dude is the engine by which we're moving forward. Not only is he first on our team in all those categories, he's top 10 in progressive passes in Serie A. He's 5th in shot creating actions in Serie A, and he's 2nd in dribblers tackled. Talk about another two-way player in the middle of the pitch. We're seeing not only Yildiz be the next big thing, but when you have a guy behind him in Thuram and a guy behind him named Bremer, I think we've got 3 insanely good, exciting players in the spine of our team that I just can't wait to watch over the course of this season.
This also begs the question for me, if Thuram pulled out these performances as he's doing now in the Premier League for a top side.
Why would you invite that discussion?
No.
Don't
I'm not trying to jinx it. I'm not trying to jinx it. But to keep that in perspective.
I know where you're going with this.
We talked about the decline of Serie A as a whole, and that it affects the teams separately as well. But imagine seeing a Thuram play at this level with the same stats that he's pulling out now in a Liverpool side, and God forbid Real Madrid come knocking. I mean, what would his price tag be? Realistically, surely they wouldn't settle for less than 100 million at this point.
How much did Declan Rice go for 2 seasons ago? 110, 120?
Something like that.
Insane like that.
Yeah. I think one important thing is, and we talked about at least renewing Yildiz, which is on the books for the Juventus management to do when we were on Bepe's podcast. But Thuram is another player like, Yildiz is the number 10, so forth. I think Thuram, we just signed him last year. I think we need to renew him too. He's not on a high wage. I think it's really important with players like Thuram
really good point.
and Yildiz. Be aggressive with it. You're not going to be spending too much for what he gives this team, and it preserves it preserves our bargaining position if Thuram continues to play like this with his size, and Yildiz too at 6'1", 6'2", with his size, balance, and dribble, and both of their dribbling ability, it is inevitable that top teams will come asking for them and flashing checkbooks. We have to protect ourselves because we're no longer in a position where we can hold on to players forever.
That was the reason why I did this kind of intro, because Juventus management wants to break open Thuram's contract this season still and see what we can do. So Comoli is acting proactive there. So a scoop within another episode, I broke the 4th wall. But I mean, it's a good thing, and it shows maturity from our side, our managerial side as well, because we can now define the players that have more value amongst others or are top in whatever they do, and we try to hold on to them. Whereas maybe 3 years ago, if you'd have a player that was a talent or somebody that could make huge strides, we'd say 60-70 million sounds nice, let's go with it, because the books plus Valenza, this and that. Now we're looking a bit more beyond that, and we're trying to firmly cement a foundation for the coming decade, which gives me a lot of hope and a lot of jitteriness, and so hence
building around a spine of Yildiz, Thuram, and Bremer as 3 core players that you can build around, and you lock them down and you say no to every offer, and recognizing that even if somebody comes, to your point, for 60, 70, 80, yes, that might seem really attractive, but the risk that puts you at perhaps not winning or progressing and getting the extra TV revenue, and it just like the risk that comes with moving on from that player would discredit just going after the capital gain.
Two things on Thuram. One, he currently earns as much as Rugani. Okay, it's giving him a raise is not going to break the the bank, and his fact is deserved. Um, in fact, when you think about it, look ahead. Over 35 million euro are going to be liberated from our wage bill next year, and non-starters leaving on a free. Like, you can throw an extra 5 or whatever it might be, or 7 to Yildiz and
without
Thuram.
question.
Easy. The second thing is, if Thuram ever finds shooting boots, I'll say it right now, if he ever finds shooting boots, he could be one of the best, if not the best midfielder in the world, with his skill set, his two-way skill set, and his size. He just has it all. If he can find shooting boots, he could be something. I mean, I think he's something special already, but he could be like world-class special.
There is a bit of it's not a rumor, but there was a gathering with players management, and I don't know, after a game or something, and Thuram was sitting with his father. His father was there too. I think it was after the Parma game. I can't remember, but my source texted me that, and they were joking. And there was at that point a transfer coming in, like I think it was the Isaac transfer for 120 million, and it was something along those lines that Thuram asked his dad, like, hey, if ever an offer for me should be made that significant, uh, do you think I had to consider that or whatever? It was something along those lines. And his dad said, are you a Juventus icon yet? And, Catherine looked at him and said, I don't think I am. Keep training, guy. Keep training. I will talk later. So, I mean, it
The
kind of
family
gives away,
connection with the club and like the emotional like heartstrings associated with it could work in our favor.
yeah,
I mean,
For a
it's
bright future
obvious.
for the player.
Yeah, I think. I mean, your heart wants that as a fan of Juventus, right? But at the same time, we know that the market that we're in, and we would, for the Premier League, we'd be a selling club. For us to come in and get 100, somebody comes to pay 150 for Thuram, that's a validation of us improving a player and a player shining here.
Yeah.
That's a reward for the player. And that's a reward for us and validation of what we've been able to see and appreciation, and that we're able to then turn around and apply that. So much of Juventus's success for the last 2 decades has been making players better that have sold for a lot of money that then we turned into like 3 or 4 players. In fact, wasn't Thuram Lilian Thuram one of the acquisitions after we sold Zidane?
Yep.
For a bunch of money? We brought in
Yep.
3 guys from all of that. And it was, and so I don't want Thuram to leave. I think, like I just said, I think he can be one of the world's best if he ever finds shooting boots. Probably one of the world's best, anyways, with the talent profile he has. I don't want him to leave, but with Juventus where it is, we have to protect ourselves.
Sure.
Let's get to a position where it requires 150 million to pry a player from us, where then we say thank you. That's a reflection of what we've been able to do with the player, and the player's been able to do here. That is a recognition and a win-win for everybody at that point, in my opinion.
Let's hope it doesn't come too quickly. I'd like to see him continue to run and pass and score and dominate all of these stats for years to come.
Yeah.
But Frederic, on the flip side, what should we be cautious about? What have you seen in the first 2 matches that gives cause for concern?
I wouldn't say that there are specific things that cause concern with me because, well, we saw the Parma game, which was a good game. The Genoa game was a difficult game, was a very different game. But all in all, I think
They
that,
always are at the Marassi.
yeah, of
Always.
course, but it comes as no surprise that, our depth in midfield and in the back line is still something that concerns me. It concerns Beppe too, and I think it concerns Zach too, and then Kevin too. I think everybody, because we don't have a proper right wing back at this point, I think. Should somebody get injured, and the same in midfield, because we speak about Thuram very highly, and justly so, because he's been remarkable. On the other hand, Locatelli wasn't. I mean, he played a decent game against Parma, or a decent half against Parma, and a couple of minutes against Genoa, but I feel there's something missing there. And you could say, well, we have Coop Miners on the rebound, and then he's picking up, but he's not at a level where he should be at this point. So I'm a bit concerned that if we should have some injuries or suspensions or overall fatigue, how are we going to cope with these two places
Mhm.
that will have to be filled up? Because for the life of me, I can't see Kalulu playing right wing again, or God forbid, McKennie being placed there just because we have no other option for him. So I hope we can intervene in January, and I think knowing
We're
Kamoli,
gonna
or
have to.
we're gonna have to, and I think we're already starting and scouring the field and the potential that we can remedy that situation, because it is a situation. And another thing that concerns me is a bit quality overall. I mean, we have abundant quality up front. Dare I say, too many even. We'll see how that figures out, because for the life of me, I still can't see where Tudor's going to play Openda, or when he's going
Yeah,
to play Openda.
that's
So I'm still
curious.
trying to process that in my mind. If you speak about Vlahovic potentially leaving, then I could see some logic there, because now was the opportunity to get Openda in, and to get him as a sub for Vlahovic, or alternate David and Openda, or even David with Openda with Yildiz behind them. I mean, these are all valid reasons, but the quality overall, like our backline apart from Bremer, is, I mean, we haven't conceded, but you could still feel the difference in quality. I mean, if we have somebody else next to Bremer, I'm thinking of a Vega type of player. Then we're cooking in the back line, I think.
Mhm.
Now, not as much. Everything falls on Bremer's shoulders, I think, and the same in midfield with Thuram holding the helm. But it's a mix of both. But overall, I think that if this Juventus side can keep up all the beautiful stats that Zach mentioned with the high press that we try to apply now, we could make it very difficult for numerous teams. We only have to, be aware that there are games that will be played viciously. There are games that will result in a standstill or a 0-0 in the 75th or 80th minute. And, then it's up to Tudor. He didn't have much to work with the last 6 games of last season. That has changed, especially in an attacking from an attacking point of view. So I hope like that he can keep that intact. But it's a fine balance. You have to look at the
Mhm.
hierarchy in the dressing room. A lot of egos, a lot of players that want minutes. Um, I'm just curious to see how he'll handle that. And maybe the last thing I'd say is the pressure. Juventus, we always have to win. We're Juventus. But you could see the last seasons that, in interviews and the way that players behave, that it was like, yeah, give us some time. We're working. Just give us some leeway, and then we're trying to make it work. Patience is gone, especially after, getting now Penda in, getting the other players in. I think the people, the fans, everybody wants to see some results, and I don't necessarily mean that in a sense of trophy winning performances, but overall just good performances. If we put out lackluster performances as we did the majority of last season with the players we have right now, I don't think a lot of fans will accept that, and it will trickle onto the players themselves too, because that was the thing that paralyzed Coop Miners last season. That
Mhm.
pressure, that the price tag hanging still on the back of his neck and things like that. So that's also something that Tudor needs to solve. He needs to keep the hierarchy, he needs to keep the positive vibes in the dressing room, he needs to keep that vibe awake, and it's not an easy task. It's definitely not an easy task. So these are the three pitfalls that I see for our Juventus side this season. But I mean, I'm not the negative Nancy I was last season, so that's saying a lot. So I
Mhm.
just hope we can build on that and get those results. And because once the results start coming in and everything goes a bit more, how shall I put it, more easy than it did last year, then the confidence will grow, the team will grow, Tudor will grow, and you could see everything, going uphill from there. But we need to be very aware of our um, pitfalls or potential pitfalls that we have as a side.
I want us
So
to
I'll
start.
share. Go ahead.
Sorry, I just want us to
Nope.
start quicker. I think both first halves stunk against Parma and Genoa. And I don't want to have to wait till second half. There's going to be teams that are come out and pop us in the nose early. We need a team. The perfect example is a derby game that's coming up. We have to start with more energy and more bite. We spoke about it for long stretches last year of starting slow, and we're seeing, at least in the first two games, a team under the same coach with largely the same players not starting with the bite I think we're going to need with standing on the barrel of a derby and 3 or 4 days later, the first game in the Champions League. That's sort of one thing I'm going to be paying attention to once we've played a few more games. But that was notable to me, the first two.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I'll share one observation from the Parma match again, which I was at. And at the end of the game, the TV is cut away from the field at this point. Usually at the end of every match, particularly a win, all the players line up together, kind of holding each other's hands or arms around each other, and just like run up to Curva Sud to start, and then they do the same thing and run at the other side. And usually they're holding hands, and they run and they jump, and then all the fans clap in celebratory nature. They did not do this after the Parma match. They walked over to the fans and applauded the fans. To me, that signaled that something has changed, that they understand, the players collectively understand what this shirt means, and celebrating like they've won the World Cup after winning the first game against Parma is not necessarily something to over celebrate. We came in, we got the job done, we beat we won our first match. On to the next one. Thank you, fans, for being here. We're in this with you. On to the next one. And because this team hasn't won anything meaningful in years. And I think maybe just with Tudor's mentality and Locatelli, albeit by no means a Juventus legend, but somebody who understands what this club means and has been here for a number of years, that can ground the team a bit. I think just keep your heads down, do the work, on to the next match.
I'm so glad you said that, because I was just dropping something off at my brother's last weekend, and he had the Man U Burnley game on. And I walked in to see Man U beat Burnley on a last-minute penalty kick and them celebrate like they'd won the World Cup or the Champions League. And I was disgusted. Like, I'm no Man U fan at all, but I'm like, Man U is jumping around like kids at recess after beating Burnley, and it was right before the Genoa game.
Losing to Grimsby from the fourth tier 4 days earlier.
Yeah, but so like that was fresh in my mind after as we went into the Genoa game, and I'm like, please, for the love of all that is holy, do not. And so I noticed this, Kevin. I'm so glad you brought up, because I haven't mentioned it. We're Juventus. We're all about business, and winning is all that matters. Do not go in and overstate these things. You have a job to do. And I love the fact that after these two games, that's the impression I got from seeing the reactions from the players.
Now, this upcoming weekend, if we beat Inter at home, I would love to see them celebrate in that manner, because it is a slightly different match.
Yeah.
But let's transition to that. So we have the first iteration of this season's Derby d'Italia coming quite early. This is a match I think we'd like to see a bit later in the schedule, once the teams kind of have some momentum. They understand how the pieces come together. Obviously with all the kind of craziness at the end of the Mercato, have players who will not have been fully integrated in how they're going to be able to contribute to the side. But here we are, and we're going to have to face them, the third match of the season. Just a little bit of history around the Derby d'Italia. The term was actually coined in 1967 by Italian sports journalist Gianni Brera, who recognized just the clash of two of the most successful clubs in Italian football history, even going back to the 60s. And you look at, obviously, Milan and Turin are very close, an hour apart by train, kind of 90-ish minutes by car, more or less. The Derby d'Italia is symbolic emblem of Northern Italy's footballing kind of dominance and supremacy across Serie A. Throughout the history of Serie A, they've quite dominated the results. And the rivalry, as we know, picked up with moments of intensity. We know that the 5th of May and everything that happened there, but particularly with Calciopoli, when we were stripped of our title and having that subsequently awarded incorrectly to Inter, and just so many moments that have contributed to the fieriness of what this match represents. And you even look back to last season, after a couple years of Inter pretty much getting the best of us, had one of, if not the most entertaining matches of Serie A in that 4-4 draw, after going ahead and falling behind, and the 2 penalties, and Kenan coming on and scoring those 2 goals as a sub. And then, of course, the 1-0 win with Colomuani doing the pirouette move in the box and laying that off for Chico to win. Like, we did well against Inter last season, and I hope that certainly can continue. One final thing here. This will be the 241st iteration of the Derby d'Italia. 110 wins for Juve, 70 for Inter, and 60 draws. And we have 351 goals against Inter's 292. So I hope this upcoming weekend we can build upon and get our 111th win and build upon the 351 goals. So Inter's start of the season has been a bit up and down. Zach, why don't you kind of talk through what the Interisti have been experiencing?
Well, I'll just say one thing about last year is Inter missed out on the Scudetto by 1 point, and they dropped 5 to us. So I'll take credit for depriving Inter a Scudetto last year. And this year, I have to disagree with you, Kevin. I think this is the perfect time to play Inter. Couple reasons. 1, new coach. 2, embarrassed at home by Udinese, who actually played for the first half where they went up 2-1, toe-to-toe with them. It was not a negative Udinese team in that first half. And 3, international break. That's an extra week that Kivu cannot work with his players. So I think if we're going to play them, especially at home, this is the perfect time to do it. A team that is largely the same in personnel, but still trying to find their feet with this new coach. And frankly, it seems like they're still trying to find their feet ever since they got humiliated in the Champions League finals. So you see the similar starting 11 from them in this similar 3-5-2, high possession, lots of shots so far, but a lack of creativity, especially off the bench. And this was notable in the Udinese game, is after Kivu was posed at halftime with a 2-1 deficit, what changes was he's going to make tactically and in personnel in order to unlock an Udinese team that was going to play further and further back. And he was incapable of doing it. So I think as long as we can be combative and we can come in with a cohesive game plan, we'll be able to absolutely go toe-to-toe, if not be able to dictate play in this game. I think the one thing, though, that and Frederick's going to maybe touch on, look ahead on, and I want to hear his thoughts on this. The one position, or I guess the 2 positions I'm looking at, are the wing back roles. Is if we can control DeMarco, by the way, who's had a wonderful start to the season, and both wings, I see us as the weak point, right? João Mario, not very good defensively. You have Cambiasso suspended. So I'm curious to see what Frederick sees for that wing back role, where Inter, when their midfield isn't able to give them their creativity, they're able to find chances through those roles. So I'll pass the mic to Frederick on what we can look forward to, or what we should look forward to once these teams meet in a week.
I'm just gonna, like I've been doing for a year now, piggyback off your thoughts, Zach, and then I wholeheartedly agree. Like the right and left wing back position is a very important one. So I hope Tudor will not do the same as he did against Parma and Genoa and lay back and feel the game a bit. I hope we can invest in our attacking skills and just grab Inter by the throat. If we do that and we make sure that we get up front in the first 20 minutes, there's no way in hell we're gonna lose that game. But of course, you touched on it, Barella. I think if Thuram comes toe to toe with Barella and Thuram has a good day, I think he can beat him. And the John Mario position and the DeMarco position or whatever, or the Dumfries position or whatever it will be, that will be vital. But we need to come out with a bang, and I hope that Tudor does that. And I think that we can win this game. I have a lot more faith now than I had like the last 2 seasons when we played Inter. So grab him by the throat, and I'll think we'll come out on top eventually.
Without Cambiaso, who are you putting in the midfield? Those 4 positions.
I'm cheating a little bit. When in doubt, plug in McKennie. So this might be the game, actually. Though we kind of mentioned, or Frederick mentioned earlier, about Kalulu at right wing back. I think this actually might be the game where I prefer Kalulu right wing back, McKennie left wing back, Loka Thuram, and then you put Gotti, Bremer, Kelly, all giants, back in the back line.
Yeah.
That Kalulu in possession, his work rate, and physicality defensively will definitely is matched by McKennie, that I think physically are going to be able to if not match, beat their counterparts. You have tall center back trio like I listed. You should be winning more head balls than we normally do. That from a cross happy team that Inter is. So I think that's what I would go with for this match. It also makes me a little nervous, Jean-Marie, not just because of his defensive side, but more so actually to put him in, to start him against this game, knowing the importance it is to the team and the environment that's going to be there. I don't want to put unnecessary pressure on a new signing who hasn't who started 1 of 2 games, 1 out of position, so far this season. So I kind of would prefer seeing him come off the bench maybe late if we need a spark plug, as opposed to starting.
Agreed, wholeheartedly.
You mean you don't want to see
Kostic Mario?
No. I mean, I could maybe we're under evaluating John Mario at this point, but we know that defensively he's lacking a bit. But
We're not.
That doesn't. I mean,
we gave him 4 out of 5.
yeah. I mean, but it's not necessarily a bad thing if we dictate play and we grab them by the throat, because the more we have the ball or the more we pressure them up front, the less of a chance we'll have that John Mario getting into issues defensively.
Mm-hmm.
So that could be a good tactic, because John Mario on the ball is a very good player, and offensively as well. It all depends on what Tudor's game plan is. I mean, is he going to be a bit more conservative? Then yes, you should put McKennie there, because you could put him anywhere. You could even be the kid guy, whatever. If you want to start full court press, put John Mario there. And if you consolidate, like if you come up front, like maybe 1 goal, 2 goals, then you could switch up and put McKennie there. So they're interchangeable, but it depends on the game plan, in my opinion.
Tudor likes to invite teams into the midfield. Like, yeah, we'll go through periods of prolonged press, but he likes to then take a step back and invite teams into the midfield. We saw him do it with Parma and Genoa, teams that might prefer to sit back. This Inter team does not prefer to sit back. They want possession. He's going to invite them in to stretch their lines a little bit so we can win ball and counterattack hard. If that's his plan, you could see him utilize João Mario as an outlet, start him on the right. Or you could see him start Kalulu for more combative, wear him down, and then bring in guys like João Mario off the bench. I could see Openda coming off the bench, considering that he's actually 100%. Match fit. And he's a really good pressing forward. So I could see guys like that coming in and just harrying the back line of Inter late in the game.
So I definitely look forward to this match. Can't wait to be there in Turin next weekend, and I'll be doing a bit of an Instagram takeover like at the Parma match. So please, again, follow us at Turin Giants. We'll be sharing some content from the build up to the match and, of course, from the Allianz. Before we kind of move into our last little segment here, Zach and Frederic have been telling me in the background here that my audio has been a bit off. Is it okay now, guys?
It's good enough for me, Kevin. I don't know if we can fix anything
It's
at
not
the spur of the
Farhad
moment.
quality. It's not Farhad quality.
Well, nothing's Farhad quality.
I don't know what's happened here, but is it too disruptive to continue?
No,
No,
it's
you're
okay.
fine.
It's
You're
okay.
fine.
You're
All
fine,
right.
man.
Okay, cool. So prepared something to wrap up this episode. Gonna share the starting 11 that nobody asked for from players who have worn both shirts from Inter and Juve. It's interesting to see what the derby represents and what the rivalry is, and to see actually such great players from each club's past who have worn both shirts. So the kind of requirements for this were that you had to have played at least one full season with either of the club, and you needed at least 20 appearances. Some of this was a
curious.
bit, yeah. So I'm going to go ahead, and if you are again watching this on video, there's a visual component to this, but if you're in your car or on a run or just audio only, we'll talk you through it. So again,
I love the 1-star Inter jersey logo there.
Yes, that was very intentional. So this is the Inter Juve starting 11 for players who wore both shirts. So I think starting goalkeeper, I think it's obvious who this person has to be. Any guesses here?
Has to be Peruzzi.
Correct. So we have Angelo Peruzzi as the starting goalkeeper, 32 appearances for Inter, over 200 for Juve. Clearly, Juve is a more meaningful part of his past, but he did wear the Inter jersey. In defense, so this is going to be a 3-4-3. So we have Luigi Di Agostini, actually a pretty meaningful player in, I think, for Inter's past.
Yeah.
146 appearances for Inter, over 30 with Juve, but a very strong player from the late 80s and early 90s. We would not get through an Inter Juve discussion without Fabio Cannavaro. So he had 74 appearances with Inter, 128 with Juve, including 2 goals. As you may recall, he had 2 stints with Juve. After Calciopoli, he ran for the hills and hid with Real Madrid for a bit. And after winning the Ballon d'Or for a great season with Juve, and of course hosting the 2006 World Cup trophy, and then carrying the Ballon d'Or in a Real Madrid kit just did not sit well. But he did come back for a bit, and he would anchor the defense. The third one was really hard. There actually were not many defenders who qualified here. So this is a bit of a reach, but we have Fabio Grosso, who again would have probably played on the left, but D'Agostini was a better left-sided defender. Fabio Grosso, 23 appearances for Inter, 47 for Juve, scored 2 goals for each side. Now, the midfield gets a lot more interesting. We're going to start with Patrick Vieira. Again, one of the players who departed quite quickly after the Calciopoli farce. 62 appearances for Inter. How many appearances do you think he had for Juve? This number actually surprised me.
I'm thinking less, or at least he had less of an impact on me during his stint at Juve, because
only 31. I just, in my mind, it was more than that. So it was just interesting.
it was also just one season, if I'm not mistaken, that he was active. I think he had an injury, and then the Calciopoli thing began, and you had the World Cup prior to Calciopoli starting, which meant that the season was a bit shortened in terms. So yeah, but not my fondest memory of midfield players that wore both jerseys, if I'm honest.
Yeah. These next two, I actually, memory had failed me that they had actually worn the Inter kit. So these are two players with actually the remaining three midfielders have primarily more appearances for Juve. But the first tier, Davids. So Edgar Davids, over 200 appearances with Juve, but did go to Inter following his 5 or 6 seasons with Juve for one season at Inter for 31 appearances. And also a genuine Juve legend, Marco Tardelli. 376 appearances with Juve, 51 goals, but 69 appearances for Inter. So he did go to Inter after all of those seasons with Juve. And the last one, again, is a bit of a stretch as well, but maybe you saw this one coming. Andrea Pirlo. He was with Inter prior to his attaining legendary status at Milan, of course, before coming to Juve. He was in and out of loans, didn't have a lot of appearances. So he had 22 appearances for Inter and then over 100 with Juve. That's a pretty good midfield. Vieira, Davids, Tardelli, Pirlo.
I've seen worse.
I'd take that one. The front line isn't bad either. So the first one, actually, someone I don't know a lot about, but a really, really impressive player, Roberto Boninsegna, 197 appearances for Inter with 113 goals. That's a pretty impressive appearance to goal ratio. Did start for Juve or have 58 appearances with 22 goals as well. Fans of the Italian national team will know him for scoring in the 1970 final against Brazil, which ultimately ended up losing 4-1. But he did have 22 appearances for the Italian national side. And then we move to good old Roberto Baggio. Of course, he will be remembered more for his impact at Juventus with 141 appearances and nearly 80 goals. He did have 41 appearances at Inter with 9 goals. But, I mean, Roberto Baggio, despite being a Juve legend, wore nearly every shirt across Serie A and all the different teams that he played for.
The same could be said for the missing striker, I think.
Well, so I think you're going for Vieri, right?
No,
he's not.
not.
Okay, all right, Ibrahimovic. Okay, another journeyman. So I Vieri and actually Giuseppe Meazza get an honorable mention for me on the bench, but opted as the final piece of the puzzle, being none other than Zlatan Ibrahimovic. 70 appearances for Juve with 23 goals, 88 appearances for Inter with 57 goals. So again, summing that up into 3-4-3, Peruzzi, D'Agostini, Cannavaro Grosso, Vieira, Davids, Tardelli, Pirlo, Boninsegna, Ibrahimovic, Baggio. I think this team would beat both the current versions of Juve and Inter.
Easy.
Yeah.
I mean,
little question.
Yeah. Go ahead. I thought you said I have a little question.
No, I said there is little question.
There's no question. Sorry. I misunderstood. But what I feel is very compelling is that if we see the players that left in 2006 after Calciopoli, my mind just starts racing at what if they stayed? What if there was no Calciopoli? Would we? I'm fairly sure that without Calciopoli, we'd have a Champions League title or two more under our belt. I'm not gonna lie, because Zlatan at that period was divine. I mean, I watched him in the flesh twice, and it was a sight of. It was a beauty to behold if you saw him play. And then he fucked off to Inter. So fuck you, Zlatan.
I can't think of a better way of ending this episode than that line.
No complaints here.
Well, thank you, listeners, for being with us on the eve and build up to the Derby d'Italia. Again, please stay close to Turin Giants on the build up and, of course, around the match. And we look forward to the post game, which will come within the following kind of 24 to 48 hours of the much anticipated match next Saturday, September 13th. Zach and Frey, pleasure as always. Love spending time with you guys.
Have fun,
And,
man. I'm very envious
Yeah.
that you'll be in Turin
Super
and
jealous.
watching the game. But you know, I love you so much. So I hope you have the time of your life. I hope you have a safe flight, safe trip, and can't wait to talk to you soon, buddy.
Fino alla fine, forza Juve.